Hey, how's it going, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Truth Defender podcast. We are coming to you from the greatest country in the world, deep in the heart of the Lone Star State, Dallas, Texas. I am your host, Paul Aguilar. We really appreciate you guys stopping in. If you guys are watching us on YouTube, please make sure you all subscribe and hit that uh, bell icon so you never miss a single episode in the future. Also, hit that thumbs up button as well. That would really help us out. If you guys are on the go, you can find us on Spotify, Google Podcasts, as well as Apple Podcasts at Truth Defender Podcast. If you want to follow us on social media, you can find us on Twitter at Defender Podcast, Instagram at Truth Defender Podcast. Also, if you have any questions or comments for myself, our guests, if you have any guest or topic recommendations, you can go ahead and email us at thetruthDefender1776@gmail.com. Today's guest is Mitch Gerber. Mitch Gerber is an activist who has dedicated his life to expose and help stop the most brutal persecution and human rights atrocity in modern history. The state-mandated and state-endorsed forced live organ harvesting of the Falun Gong, where hundreds and thousands of Falun Gong practitioners of this spiritual mind and body practice have been murdered since 1999 in China, sent to death camps and hospitals where their bodies are cut up while alive to harvest their organs. All Mr. Gerber wants is for people to know about this human rights violation and become aware, lend their support and consciousness to stop this barbaric, inhumane atrocity that will soon leave the world's people numb. Raised in America, born in South Africa, he now continues his work in Vietnam. Without further ado, Mr. Mitch Gerber. Mr. Gerber, how are you doing today, sir?
I'm good, Paul. Very glad to be with you. Very honored to be on your show.
Yeah, absolutely, very much. I really appreciate you coming on. I had actually heard of you. I believe you were on the Confessionals podcast with Tony Merkel. That's the first time that I had actually heard of you. Now, I had actually heard of these things that are happening in China for a while now. I just didn't know how extensive they were and how deep they went. But before we get into all that, can you please let everybody know how you kind of got started in this whole movement here?
Absolutely. It all started when I was attending a top business school, a very top business school in Atlanta, Georgia, at 21 years old. I'm 41 years old now. Okay. So 20 years of my life, I've dedicated my spirit, my heart, my blood, my sweat, my tears, my focus, my passion on this particular cause. And before we get into it, I was studying international business, politics, and management at the University of Georgia and a couple other places. And I came across this particular inhumane atrocity they were about to get into with the Falun Gong and others in China in 2001, May 4th, 2001. I was very drawn to this particular spiritual movement of mind and body, meditation, qigong, tai chi, and yoga, all combined. And I was very interested in yoga. I was a physical enthusiast, loved weight training, loved running, loved sports, very active. And I wanted something that could ease a spiritual side of my physical being, as you can call it. And I don't want any of the religious crap. I'm not a religious kind of guy. I come from a Judeo-Christian family. I am a believer in God. People can believe what they want to believe. It's not my business. But I really was drawn to this because when I first started to practice the Falun Gong exercises, the body becomes incredibly healthy. I couldn't believe the state of being, the state of health, the state of positivity I was feeling physically, spiritually, emotionally, mentally. I could see everything around me change in a positive direction. People felt the energy because the aura of the body, the energy, the vibration, as the late Bob Marley would say, positive vibration. People can feel that. They can feel a negative aura. They can feel bad energy, good energy. And so it emulated and it was integrated after practicing Falun Gong and these exercises that I learned at the University of Georgia to all aspects of my life. And I really benefited greatly. And what shocked me really to a core, something deep inside touches you when you come across something that you firmly believe in is your legacy, is your path, is your goal, your cause, is when I found out what the Chinese Communist Party, the Red Dragon, is doing to these people and have been doing to these people for the last 20 years in China, sending hundreds and thousands of innocent Falun Gong practitioners, Uyghur Muslims, house Christians, and Tibetan Buddhists. Particularly 95% of the victims of Falun Gong practitioners to these state-mandated hospitals, concentration camps, death camps, military facilities run by the Chinese military at the behest of the highest-ranking officials of the Chinese Communist Party, to create a legal, sanctioned, forced organ harvesting business with multi-billions of dollars, the largest harvesting of organs in the entire world and history as we know it. Cutting out these people's organs while alive, selling their organs as the healthiest organs in the world illegally without any consent, and then burning the bodies in the crematories and the boiler rooms of the hospitals to conceal the evidence. So for the last 20 years, the main investigators and myself have been on the front line exposing this. And I'm just very grateful to be on your show to expose this with your audience and your people who are willing to have the courage to listen and cut through the BS and really understand what is going on. Because now you see the Chinese Communist Party, now you see the Red Dragon, and now you see the Communist Party virus at your doorsteps. So people, what you're going to do.
Right. Now, you mentioned investigations that are going into it. Now, I mean, you obviously don't see it all over the news. It's maybe you pick up a reporter or two here and there. Now, when you mention investigations, are you guys actually going into China, or how does that work?
Okay, so in 2001, when the persecution of Falun Gong began, it's a simple meditation, has 5 beautiful exercises for stretching and opening up the energy channels and clearing the mind and attaining a more healthy and stress-free body. So when Falun Gong was introduced into the general public of China, and it's pronounced Falun Gong, it spread like wildfire, Paul. I mean, 1 out of every 10 Chinese national citizens were practicing this spiritual meditation or movement within 8 years, just through word of mouth alone, free of charge, nothing cultish, nothing terroristic, as this communist regime is demonized as to be. So by 1998, 100 million people, the government estimates of the Chinese regime estimated that between 70 and 100 million people, 1 out of every 10 Chinese national citizens, more than half of China's echelon of society, the higher upper class society, the 7 ranking highest members of the Communist Party and their families were practicing, the military generals, top business leaders, were all practicing, military generals, soldiers, peasants, I mean, all kinds of classes, 100 million people, tens of millions were practicing these innocent spiritual movements. And the Chinese government praised it at the time and said, this is causing millions of dollars of healthcare costs to be reduced. They were giving Falun Gong and its founder, Mr. Li Hongzhi, a great man who has been a 5-time nominee of the Nobel Peace Prize and multi-faceted awards around the world in over 120 different countries through the United States Congress, Spain, Israel, Canada, I mean, you name it, Germany, European Union, he's just been honored for the Freedom of Thought Award, for Health Awareness Award, and has top honors, the Star Qigong School in China in 5,000 years in the Chinese civilization. There was no other practice in 5,000 years of Chinese culture, traditional thought, and divine spiritual foundation that was so powerful and so popular. And that is what was threatened by the communist regime. So when we found out about the persecution of Falun Gong that started on July 1999 by the former president of China, Jiang Zemin, who became very jealous and hateful, that he couldn't control the hearts and the minds of so many people, and that his power was overshadowed, his legacy was overpowered by this popular practice. He did everything he could to destroy it, demonize it, vilify it, and turn public opinion against it, poisoning the minds of the Chinese people with villainous and demonic propaganda, a weaponized propaganda machine, day in and day out, that Falun Gong is a cult, Falun Gong is a terrorist group, Falun Gong is a CIA operative, a backed cult. It's evil. He even went so far as to plan 4 people and a 12-year-old girl to set themselves on fire in Tiananmen Square, a self-immolation, staged, debunked. Okay, it's a staged immolation in 2001 to turn public opinion against Falun Gong, arresting anyone who practices Falun Gong, declared war on Falun Gong by creating a 610 office, a Nazi type of Gestapo office that sits on top of the Communist Party as we speak today for the last 20 years, mandating and politicizing that any economic, social, and political policy and regulation in China, and I mean anyone, any political, economic, and social policy from the highest ranking of members go through this office and has one purpose and one purpose only, this office, to destroy Falun Gong. Everything is tied in China to Falun Gong. They declared war on it because it became so popular. And what they did is they demonized it before they investigated the health benefits and saw how the organs were becoming miraculously healed. People with leukemia, tuberculosis, cancer, AIDS, MS, hepatitis, all kinds of ailments, illnesses, and injuries were disappearing within 3 months of practicing Falun Gong and living a more truthful, compassionate, and tolerant life. These are the principles behind Falun Gong, because you can't have a healthy body without a healthy mind. Then the mind you have to have a compassionate and kind heart, a good solid mind of truth, whether you're in business or in love, and you want to be tolerant. You don't want to hurt people. So when you practice these exercises and the mind is clear like this, you become really healthy. So this is what the communist regime has saw through its military, through its medical research, and therefore created a final solution campaign to destroy this practice. So in 2001, coming back to your question, just foreshadowing and getting you ready for this question, 2001 hits, 2006 comes along, and David Kilgour and David Mattis, 2 international human rights lawyers from Canada, do investigations and confirm over 18 hard pieces of evidence that between 2001 and 2006, 40 to 65,000 Falun Gong practitioners were harvested alive for their organs. Then Ethan Gutman, who I sat down with David Kilgour, I brought him on a coalition to London at a trial trafficking court in London in Westminster Abbey to present a presentation. And they've gone throughout the world, 50 different countries, United Nations, the World Health Organization, you name it, to expose this evil. Ethan Gutman, who wrote the book The Slaughter, and David Kilgour and David Mattis, who wrote the book and the report Bloody Harvest, the Kilgour and Mattis report, over 52 pieces of evidence by 2016. And they confirmed there's no doubt that this is going on. These are like lobsters being taken out of tanks, cut open while alive, sold for the highest bidder, hundreds and thousands of dollars, making a multi-billion-dollar profit-tearing genocide. And everyone stays quiet. Only 4 countries have banned organ tourism, but the rest of the world keeps quiet. The United Nations, the World Health Organization, the governing bodies, the Wall Street bankers, the global cabal, they all stay quiet. I mean, look, Rockefeller had 7 heart transplants. Where do you think those heart transplants came from? Falun Gong practitioners.
Yeah.
So this is a new form of evil, ladies and gentlemen, and Paul.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you obviously, like you mentioned, nobody reports on it. I mean, you never hear anything about it on the news. I mean, even if you go on YouTube and you try looking things up, you rarely see any kind of videos. I mean, besides knowing somebody that's actually done investigations into it or, things like that, you would never know that it's actually going on. I mean, you speak about China and like the World Health Organization. I mean, we already know that the World Health Organization's pretty much in the back pocket of China. I mean, they pretty much put out any kind of propaganda that they tell them to. Now, is that, how deep does that kind of run? I mean, are they entrenched into like other organizations when it comes to China? I mean, they obviously control pretty much all the media. I mean, you never hear anything about it. So,
Absolutely, you nailed it, Paul. The Communist Health Organization and the Communist United Nations are all controlled by China, the Communist Party. Now, we must be clear on one thing. We do not, China, the Chinese people, the Chinese civilization, and even the Chinese government is not the Chinese Communist Party. The CCP is a reign of terror. It's an evil demonic specter. Communism is evil. The last stronghold of evil communism is in China. It's evil Chinese communism. It came from Marx, Leninism, Trotskyism. It came from the Paris Commune, which is a gang of scoundrels going around Europe or Paris, burning down buildings. Sound familiar? The Antifa and the radical Black Lives Matter terrorists, communist groups, movements in America. You can clearly see what is going on the left, on the radical leftist liberal agenda. It's all communist China. It's all tricoms arming Black Lives Matter militants and Mexican narcos on the southern border using democratic radical Marxist governors who are treasonous to burn the American flag, to demonize the lost liberal students' minds into a communist way of life where the globalist cabal, George Soros, Henry Kissinger, Rockefeller, and the tricoms are wanting to take over America. And they've got the deep state. You've heard about this with Q. This is not new. This is all going on. And what I like about Trump, and you can say what you want, he is combating communism. That's the reason why he's in power, because he's a godsend to stop communism. Because if it was for Hillary Clinton or Barack Obama or any of these other radical Marxists, our republic, as we know it, would have collapsed. You are seeing it right now. As you see it with Chaz and Chop and Autonomous Zone and Radical Antifa and Black Lives. They're not for the Black Lives. I mean, some of them are, but it's not Black Lives. They're using racism as a psyop disguised like liberalism as communism to take over our great republic, destroy the families, destroy the freedom of speech, destroy the Second Amendment, destroy the freedom of press, and everything else. And in the name of the psyop Marxist tactic called racism, political correctness, no child left behind, and all this nonsense. So it's all out of the playbook of the Communist Manifesto. And that's how deep it goes, because they know that America is the light. They know it's a normal country. They want to destroy America with communism, and they've got away with it for a long time, but they won't get away with it much longer. And this is why Trump, if you read The Art of the Deal, if you read The Art of War from Sun Tzu, I think I pronounced him right, he exposes the enemy at the gate. He exposes the poison so people can see what it is. The Americans are not stupid. Law-abiding American citizens, what, they're 250 million. I'm one of an American citizen. I was born in South Africa. I immigrated to America. We did it the legal way. We didn't invade. We came. My father opened up a business. He worked like hell to open up the business with my mother and my grandmother, God rest his soul. And we did it the legal way. I was the first one in my family to become an American citizen. And I just watched Michael Jordan's The Last Dance the other day. And in the 1990s and the 1980s, there was no incidents of brutality. I mean, yes, there are crooked cops, but people were together. There was black and there was white. Yes, the civil rights movement. Yes, the Nazi Germany. Yes, you had the Armenian genocide, the Rwandan genocide. You had apartheid. Those are evil periods. That's evil. But you can't project that on and scapegoat white people or conservatives or Christians or Chinese or Germans just because something evil happened in history. It's not allowed. It's not okay. But that's what communism is. That's what they do. They scapegoat. They incite hatred. All what you are seeing in America and all what you have seen in China and all what you are seeing on the narrative news media, like fake news media, like CNN and MSNBC and all the leftist radical media outlets, they're communist mouthpieces, you are seeing a brainwashing, an indoctrination, a deception, because communism is evil.
Right.
And under the Chinese Communist Party, there's a saying that many regimes, many administrations, many empires, many kings, queens, whatever you want to call them, killed in order to conquer lands. Okay. However, the Chinese Communist Party came into power, took over China, and conquered in order to kill. I was talking to some Antifa terrorists last night on a podcast, and they were saying to me, "We're going to kill Trump supporters. We don't want Trump. We hate Trump." And I'm like, "Listen, I don't care whether you're Proud Boy, Antifa, whatever. You're a human being in my eyes, and I don't believe in killing anybody, but I believe in defending with the Second Amendment." But this is how they talk. Communism is about killing. It's about violent revolution. It's about violent struggle, fighting against heaven and earth, subversion into destroying the traditions, wiping out the culture, twisting the minds. And before, I know I've been talking for a while, Paul. There's just so much information I can share. I'm just downloading so much stuff for you and your viewers, because you're not going to get this shit anywhere else, man. I'll tell you right now. Excuse my language. You ain't going to get this stuff anywhere else. I've lived it, man. I'm a true warrior of the light. I'm a true warrior in the freaking trenches. I'm 100 miles away from the Chinese border. I've risked my life for 20 years. I've given everything for 20 goddamn years. And I don't care what people say about me. I'm not here to impress you. I don't get paid money for this. I'm not doing this for no name, seeking no reward. I'm laying it down because it's the right thing to do. Because in life, what is a man who cannot make the world a better place? And you know what? To fail to support good and to fail to expose evil is unacceptable. And this is my fight. And you know what? How many people, and I don't have an NGO. I just started an export business in Vietnam with an Indian buddy of mine. But how many guys fight against the Red Dragon and live to tell about it? Well, I do. And I might be dead tomorrow. But you know what? I'm glad I'm on your show tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. We're glad you're here. Actually, I mean, we all know, we're only up to this point because of the Obama era, right? So those 8 years that he was in office were pretty much the setup for Hillary Clinton, had she won, which she was supposed to win, obviously. I mean, even in colleges, they've been brainwashing students for a long time now. You have, all these students that are now trying to go to communism, and they're Marxists and all kinds of crap that they push in colleges now. And you see, the results of this whole time that's been going on. If you look on the mission statement for Black Lives Matter, they're self-proclaimed Marxists, right? And that's what they were organized. They're organizers like that. And one of their mission statements is to dismantle the nuclear family. I forgot exactly what it is.
Yep.
But, they want to get rid of families. Take the fathers out of the homes, which is pretty much what's been plaguing the Black community for a long time now. Black fathers not being around their kids, they're in jail, and you can pretty much thank Bill Clinton for that, or you can actually thank Joe Biden for that. He's pretty much been in charge and the architect of pretty much every major crime bill since the 60s, right? So now he's running for president, and God knows, God help us if he actually gets in, which I don't think that's actually going to happen. But it's kind of upside down world nowadays here in America. The news, schools, businesses, people are just kind of caving to this whole Antifa, Black Lives Matter thing. When or how the Patriots going to say, this is enough, enough's enough, and actually start to push back, but nobody wants to because everybody's scared.
It's coming. Trump, the Patriots, we are ready. We have the military, we have ICE, we have the army, we have the police. We're waiting. Black, white, Hispanic, Pakistani, we're waiting. We're exposing, and this is what I said about the art of the deal. Trump is showing the world and showing the silent majority of Americans what these communists are doing. He is exposing the poison of communism. That's exactly what he's doing before he shuts it down. Remember with ISIS, Obama and Hillary Clinton, these communist, treasonous pedophiles. Okay, I mean, That's what they are. They're demon wretches. Hillary Clinton was caught with Jeffrey Epstein on the Lolita Express. You know Jeffrey Epstein, who ran a huge pedophile ring.
Yep.
All the elites, the congressmen. There's about 5,000 sealed indictments. They all know what's going on behind the scenes. The deep draining the swamp. Remember, Trump said, "Drain the swamp." That's what he's doing. He's going after MS-13 gangsters. He's deporting by the thousands. We don't really know. The average person will never know. These CNN idiots will never know. This Fredo Cuomo, this Don Lemonhead, they're idiots, okay? If anything, they are criminally complicit with the talking points to lie to the media. But I don't think I don't think that they are that clever. I think they're so stupid and they're brainwashed and they're minions to a higher cult of demons. I would call them demons, like the George Soros. I mean, he's Palpatine, execute Order 66. Remember Skywalker?
Yeah.
When Palpatine ordered the Jedi to be eliminated, and what happened with Skywalker? He turned to the dark side.
Right.
Well, they've all had their chances, and only Trump was brought in by divine intervention. That's all I can. Maybe some people are atheists who listen to your show and they're like, okay, Mitch, stop getting into the woo-woo spiritual stuff. Stick to the facts. Okay, all right. But just hear me out for a second. Trump was sent by some kind of force, whatever you want to call it, to stop communism dead in its tracks. Because and this is what he's exposing before he takes it out. Just like with ISIS, they were growing and growing and growing. And I believe that Trump and Putin are working together behind the scenes because they know what the Chinese are trying to do to destroy. And if you want to go even further in conspiracy fact, I don't do conspiracy theory. I'll do it, but we'll preface this with alleged.
Right.
Allegedly unleashing deliberately a virus into the general population of China to control the population there and to invade America with it, to destroy the economy, because they know how good Trump is. They know that Trump has put a death nail in and a wretch in the globalist plan to destroy America and install a communist-style system and depopulate the republic for which it stands, shred and tear up the Constitution, basically dismantle, as you were saying, the nuclear family. Communism in its entirety has made a move, and a desperate move, in order to survive, like a poison, into America. But it won't last long because they have been infected. They've infected the liberal, losing, deranged syndrome mind, and it's very similar to the Lord of the Rings, where in the second Lord of the Rings, when the wizard Gandalf and the Return of the King, what's his name, Aragorn, they visit the other kingdom, not Gandor, but the other one, the Rohan, and they go into the king's chambers and they see the king just sitting there, and he's been poisoned by Saruman, the wicked sorcerer. Remember that scene?
I think I do.
Saruman's controlling his mind. If you don't, just go back to, you can go on YouTube and you can take a look at Lord of the Rings, Rohan King manipulated.
Okay.
And Gandalf comes in, who's the good guy, and he's like, get out of his mind, and he pushes Saruman out. And that wicked wizard gets out of his mind, and the king comes back to normal. Well, that's what's happened. That's what communism is. It's even Spider-Man. Remember, there's a Spider-Man. There's a Spider-Man movie where Peter Parker gets hold of this black. What do you call it?
The Venom
mutation. Yeah, that's what communism is. It controls you. It's a specter. It's an imposter, and it has come. It's seeped its way into China, and now into America, but not for much longer. Not for much longer.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you can't. I mean, personally, I believe that this whole COVID-19 virus was actually, unleashed on purpose. When you speak about Trump and him imposing sanctions on China, We were starting to bring all the jobs back from China. Even Japan was leaving China. Everything was kind of falling apart in China. You had all the protests in Hong Kong as well. They were actually going on at that time. Um,
Right.
they were actually saying that COVID-19 had spread across the world a lot sooner than they had actually reported. A lot of people that I've spoken with, and a lot of people say that they thought that they had already had COVID before, like in November, December of last year. I'm personally one of them. I believe that I had actually got it back in December, because I remember actually getting sick like 2 or 3 times in that month. Real bad. We obviously got over it, but I believe that at that time, they kind of unleashed it on purpose, just because of everything that was going on.
I got it twice here. I'm
Yeah.
100 miles away from China. I'm in Hanoi. You can even ask the Vietnamese. They've lived under communist China, communist rule for 40 years, ever since the fall of Saigon. So yeah, it's a deliberate unleashing of a virus that has been basically used as a weapon, a biological warfare weapon. Francis Boyle, who drafted the Biological Warfare Act of 1989 under the Bush regime, passed unanimously by the House of Representatives and the United States Senate to stop these BSL 4 labs, these level 4 labs, basically biological warfare, atomic bombs. I mean, you shouldn't have these kind of things. And where was one of them? Wuhan, China, funded by the death scientist Anthony Fauci, a deep state operative, if I ever heard.
And Obama.
No.
And Obama. They had a whole bunch of pictures of them together.
Yep.
in those labs, walking around, and they were actually talking to the scientists and all this crap. But yeah.
Yep. $4 million. He was the head of the National Cancer Institute, and he funded the Wuhan Virology Lab, $4 million, plus Bill Gates. Don't even get me started on a pedophile Bill Gates.
Yeah.
And his eugenicist program, as well as Planned Parenthood. I mean, who has wiped out. And this is the thing about, again, Black Lives Matter, coming back to that. If they really cared and they really gave a crap about Black lives, why aren't they protesting the 400,000 Black babies that have been killed each and every year from planned extermination, founded by Margaret Sanger, one of the biggest racists there was, using Black eugenicists, working with the Nazis to destroy Jews, and working with the communist regime on the one-child policy that has killed millions of Chinese innocent girls. Okay. But they don't say that. Oh no. And if they really cared about Black lives, they would be going into Chicago and Philadelphia. Larry Pickney, who was a former Black, very high-ranking Black Panther member, he was on Infowars. I was on Infowars with Alex Jones, Owen Schroyer on the War Room. I'm sure you know about him. I was interviewed with him and. Larry Pickney, one of the founding Black member party, Black Panthers, or very high-ranking, he came out and he said the reason why Black Lives Matter is to destroy the Republic. So you see these groups that have been formed in the United States based on the communist Chinese evil specter that has plagued China and has wiped out 120 million people, decimated 5,000 years of Chinese traditional culture, and coming back to the base topic, sending hundreds and thousands of Falun Gong practitioners to state-mandated hospitals, cutting out their organs while alive and selling their organs. Not to mention, Paul, the adrenochrome. I'm sure, I don't know if you heard about the adrenochrome. The elites using the blood of tortured children through the pituitary gland, okay, torturing children, extracting their blood, using it as an elixir. Well, who do you think is the largest supplier of this blood? The
China.
Communist Party, using Falun Gong practitioners, children and others to kill, to make money off this. And I know this for a fact because I work with the people. I've got a lot of context, okay, but I can tell you right now, there was one called Dr. Enver Tohti, a documentary that is worthwhile watching. There's two actually, but the one is called Hard to Believe. It's free on YouTube, but I do implore your listeners to watch it. It's called Hard to Believe documentary. Just type into YouTube, you can watch it. It's about 52 minutes. And Dr. Enver Tohti, who I also invited to the seminar, a briefing basically for us in London, he was a Chinese surgeon in 1995, and he was forced to do a organ harvesting on a prisoner of conscience. And after that, the man died. He extracted the organs, and the blood was still running, so he knew this person was alive. He was forced by the communist cadres, and he had to flee because he just was filled with guilt and grief. He became a bus driver. He gave up his surgeonship, if you want to call it that, and lived a very humble life. But he had nightmares. He couldn't get rid of it. He was full of grief, knowing that he, took a life by, and so one day he was in London and he saw organ harvesting, forced live organ harvesting seminar, to stop this. And he saw the investigators, David Kilgore, David Mattis, Ethan Gutman, speaking. And Ethan Gutman, one of the investigators, who wrote the book The Slaughter, and I hope everybody can read The Slaughter as well. That's one of the main evidence confirming this new form of evil that's happening in China, without a doubt. He asked in the crowd, has anyone had experience with this? Has anyone come to China from China? I wish we had someone. And Enver Tohti was happening to sit there. He put up his hand. He says, yes, I was a surgeon who did forced organ harvesting. Well, it started from there, and they have gone around the world and shared this. But unfortunately, the Chinese Communist Party, coming back to your second question, I think, about how deep it goes, they have used infiltration, spy networks to infiltrate the World Health Organization. They have the liver surgeon, Huang Jiefu, who was the minister, this is the vice president of the Minister of Health to the Chinese Communist Party, a very high-ranking official, vice president of the Minister of Health, who did liver surgery and oversaw the killing and forced live organ harvesting of the Falun Gong, and even did Falun Gong organ harvesting transplants. Now he sits on the board of the World Health Organization with Tedros. Mm-hmm. Tedros is the Secretary General, Council General, the head guy on the Communist Health Organization, a puppet to the Chinese Communist Party, and they have denied and refuted all the claims, all the facts, all the evidence from the investigators, particularly with Falun Gong. So you won't hear too much about it because the communist regime has entrenched itself with money, land. I put it to you this way. My office just got shut down about a year ago in Hanoi by the secret police and the VCP, which is the Vietnamese Communist Party, the Viet Minh, the Viet Cong, Charlie, as a lot of Americans would think about it, okay? They're still very much in control. They like to have the money now. They're dressed like Westerners, but they're all Vietnamese communists, okay? The old guard is changing because the younger generation hates communism and communism is dying. And thank God for Trump because he's pulling the death knell in China. And that's why China's going apeshit right now and deliberately have deliberately attacked and trying to take over the South China Sea, invade Hong Kong, deliberately unleash a Chinese Communist Party virus, and not to mention armed Mexican narcos and sending 10,000, by the way, 10,000 shipments of mods for AR-15s to Black Lives Matter terrorists, arming them for a revolutionary takeover, as you're seeing in the States right now. So, yeah, this is all being funded by George Soros and the Chinese Communist Party. But it won't last long because the communist regime is on the verge of collapse as well. Economically, socially, and politically, it's finished.
Right. Yeah. And you see that with when they had actually put up that Chaz zone in Portland, I believe it was, or in Seattle, wherever it was. They were actually walking around BLM, handing out rifles, just like rifles that were fully modded, like extended magazines with sights and all kinds of things that, like, that's not cheap. You don't just go to the store and they just sell them to you like that, So obviously those weapons were coming from somewhere. And you mentioned the narcos. I was actually born and raised in West Texas in El Paso, which is right on the border. So, I've seen that ever since I was little, all the stuff that happens on the border. But So when they're kidnapping these people, and you mentioned the doctor that was actually forced to perform these surgeries. Is that mostly, is that how it goes? Is it the doctors don't want to be a part of it, but they're forced, or is it, like all the doctors, they have no issue with it, or how does that work?
What's so scary about this is because people think that, oh yeah, organ harvesting, we're doing it in the States. BS. This is a legal, state sanctioned, state endorsed, state mandated, military operated and funded by the highest ranking members of the Communist Party to turn doctors into murderers, create massive hospitals, massive the Laogao system, which is the concentration camp system, 254 concentration camps when the persecution of Falun Gong began on July 20th, 1999. It was like a Kristallnacht, which was the complete crackdown of Jews, and the basically kill the cockroaches, okay, in Rwanda when 80,000 Tutsis were just macheted by Hutu extremists. Okay, luckily the Tutsis could fight back with their ammunition to take over, but and drive them back. But when this occurred in China, this complete persecution, brutal persecution of 100 million people practicing Falun Gong, you could not practice. You were outlawed. It was forbidden in China to practice Falun Gong, and if you were caught, you would be sent to labor camps. Hundreds and thousands, millions have been sent to labor camps, forced detention centers, re-education centers, death camps, and state-mandated hospitals in sealed containers, cuffed to railings like rotisserie chickens. Their organs ripped out of their bodies while alive to fund a multi-billion-dollar organ harvesting business. This is not some kidney in the bathtub story, folks. This is not some kind of a Staten Island rabbi in upstate New York selling organs, okay, getting caught for taking an organ here or taking an organ there. By the way, Israel was the first one to create the banned law, a transplantation law of 2008, to ban any Israeli citizen from going to China from taking organs because after what they've heard about Falun Gong. So the Sanhedrin, the Rabbinic Council, as well as the Knesset passed laws. So God bless Israel for doing that. Then came Taiwan, then came Spain, and hopefully Italy. But nowhere else. I'm ashamed. I'm ashamed to call myself. Well, I'm not ashamed to call myself an American, but I'm ashamed that America, Canada, and high-ranking countries in the EU have not took a stance on this. But more and more is coming out now. But yeah, this is a state-sanctioned. This is legal, state-sanctioned killing, kill to order on a specified date to fund a multi-billion-dollar organ harvesting business using raw material, Falun Gong practitioners in death camps, state-mandated hospitals, military facilities, re-education centers, and I'm talking about 100 million. Okay, so I don't want. When you talk about numbers, we've got to be very careful because this is, if I exaggerate, and the numbers are, I don't want to tell the truth here. I can't tell the truth because if I tell you the truth, people are not going to believe me. So I'm not going to go into that. All I'm going to say for right now, conservative estimates are between 80 to 100,000 transplantations on Falun Gong practitioners have been committed each year, and that's a very conservative estimate. From 50 to between 40 and 50, 40 to 65,000 Falun Gong practitioners killed for their organs between 2001 and 2006. But the numbers are shocking. I can't tell you more about how shocking they are because you will see in the future. This is going to, as you said in my bio, I didn't make up. I'm not making up hyperbole, folks. When I tell you, you're going to be shocked to the core. You thought you were shocked by the Nazis. You think you were shocked by the Armenian genocide, the Rwandans, the Tutsi extremists, or ISIS, because the only second group that was harvesting organs in the Sinai, called the Desert of Death in the Sinai Peninsula, when Ethiopians and a lot of Somalians would cross that desert and they were caught by ISIS, they would be harvested for their organs and sold. So the ISIS was on a lower scale harvesting organs. Deep in Iran as well, there are death camps and they're harvesting organs as well. There has been in India as well, and Southeast Asia, where I am, of course, human trafficking, sex trafficking, child trafficking, pedophiling, huge in the States, as you've heard about Pizzagate, as you've heard about Jeffrey Epstein. Exactly.
Insulting with Wayfair, and then they're actually selling kids online and stuff like that, right in front of your face too. It's it's there. It's
Prince Edward and all those kind of guys, the royal family, but no one yet has heard about. You've heard about the Uyghur Muslims being detained in concentration camps, but no one has heard really what has gone on with the Falun Gong. And that's why, Paul, I tell you, man, you are a blessing. Your audience is a blessing. I'm very grateful for me to come on. I mean, it's almost 2 o'clock in the morning with my lesson. But I am honored, truly, my friend, to come on your show. And people can feel the sincerity. It's not what you do. It's not what you say. It's how you say it. And that's how I'm a firm believer in truth and fact, justice, rights, and logic. And liberalism is disguised communism. I mean, it's full-blown communism disguised as liberalism. That's why the radical left are so cowardly, and they're so hypocritical, and they're so brainwashed and a bunch of hypocrites, because they don't understand how lost they are and what they're actually doing. They don't really understand. But I feel very sorry for them, and that's why the patriots, you say, are not doing anything. We're just standing by, waiting for the right time, and it will come. It will come, because America will never fall to communism. America will never fall. But we're not going to put these people in gulags and send them all to concentration camps or re-education. The right doesn't do that. The patriot movement doesn't do that. True Americans don't do that. Liberty and justice for all, capitalism, and the constitutional laws, the founding fathers, we do not do that. We do not do that. We have compassion. But if you test our states, and if you test our constitution, and you're trying to override America, you will be put in your place, and you will be brought down, and you will be defeated, because no one will burn the American flag. You have the right to, but by taking off the statues, by burning American flags, by destroying the nuclear family, by trying to mock the Constitution and stop us from believing in God, stop us from pledging allegiance, stop us flying the flag in our neighborhoods, flying the flags in our schools, wearing a mask or not wearing a mask, and trying to, this is anti-American, this is treasonous, and this is communism. And I remember when I was pledging allegiance to the United States of America with all these other foreigners, with all these other foreigners, I pledged allegiance, and I was proud to pledge allegiance to the United States of America, for which it stands, under one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And there was, in the book, I had to sign that you're not a communist, that you're not affiliated with the Communist Party. You cannot be an American citizen if you are. And I remember the days when the commie was kicked down the street, and the commie was kicked. The commie crap was kicked. They kicked the crap out of the commie. Okay, yeah. Until the commie converted and said, "You know what? I don't know what the hell I was doing." But now you can see how rampant it is. Yeah. So it is a concern that it hasn't been stopped yet, but we're waiting, and there's not much time left, because and another thing, one more thing as well, and this is all communism. The removing of Eskimo pies, the removing of white voices from playing black roles from The Simpsons, from NASCAR. There's Bobber Smollett seeing a noose and freaking out. Yeah. I mean, these people are pathetic. They are pathetic, and they're losers, and they're a bunch of idiots. And you know what? What's your main malfunction, numbnuts? Didn't mommy and daddy give you enough attention when you were a child, or did they give you too much attention? Grow up, cultivate your value, and get a job. Stop blaming white people and good people and strong people and conservatives and patriots and Trump supporters for all your goddamn problems. We're not your problems. And then taking on a violent, radical, extremist, communist ideology to try and destroy the very freedoms that have given you what you want and what you need. Such unappreciative cocksuckers, excuse my language,
No,
but
you're
that's
good.
how I feel.
Yeah. Now, yeah, I mean, it's kind of an odd thing to see. I mean, you have, I remember when I heard it, but you have white people protesting against other white people for being white people, right? So
It's ridiculous.
it's absolutely
Twisted.
absurd. Yeah, it's crazy. I've never seen anything like it. I mean,
We haven't.
you know, even back in the day, I mean, you mentioned like World War II around those times. If anybody even had any kind of inkling or made any kind of thought that you were like any kind of communist or anything to do with that, you know, they would beat the shit out of you and they would take you out on the streets or they put you in jail. It was like a big thing, right? But
Yep.
now everybody's just like, well, you know, it's not a big deal. We'll just kind of let it happen. It's going on in all the schools. I mean,
Yep.
a lot of people are starting to take their kids out of school. I mean, I homeschool my son. Like that's one of the main reasons why he
Thank
doesn't
God.
go to any kind of public school. And that's just how it's going to be from now. You know, it's with all this like with all this lockdown that's happening, you're seeing more and more parents here in the States, especially starting to, you know, homeschool their kids, and they're actually thinking about not sending their kids back to school anymore because of that. And you can't blame them.
Exactly. Exactly. And I wanted to just add to your point that Trump, I just saw that he's warning the liberal liberal universities like UCLA, Berkeley, defunding them because of spreading this communist ideology that is poisoning the minds of the liberal university students and making them become very, very violent. I don't know if you've heard about Caitlin Bennett, but Caitlin Bennett was she carried an AR-14, very attractive picture of her carrying an AR-15 with her beautiful hair. And anyway, cut a long story short, she went on liberal campuses to see if they could have a debate, just like Lauder and Crowder, Steve Crowder and Candace Owens, and different places like that. Changed my mind. He does a brilliant job. I don't know if anybody has ever seen that, but I truly would support him, like Charlie Kirk and Turning Point USA and all these kind of places. Very conservative and great debates. But anyway, Caitlin Bennett was on a very liberal campus, and all of a sudden, I mean, out of nowhere, people were texting this, this rotten bitch was here. We're gonna have to kill her. We have to beat her up. And luckily, she had a bodyguard, like basically hoist her out and put her in a car and take her out, because even the cops wouldn't do a goddamn thing. And Ezra Levant, I don't know if you heard about him, but he was in Town Hall Square the other day in Canada, and the cops wouldn't do anything. I mean, these Antifa and these leftists and these are the real fascists. These are the real brown shirts. These are the real communists, okay, who are accusing Trump supporters and demonizing Trump supporters and slandering and attacking Trump supporters as being communists. And they spit from their mouths, Nazi scum, get off our streets, and demonizing Trump as a Nazi. Well, let me tell you something. If Trump was such a fascist and a Nazi, you people, Fredo Cuomo, all you MSNBC mouthpieces will be sent the day of his dictatorship, his Nazi reign, if you want to call it, his fascist reign, to the gas chamber and gassed to Serbian gulags out in the Serbian mountains and shot. You would be taken off the air. All the leftist liberal think tanks and tech giants like Facebook, YouTube would be replaced by right-wing conservative fascists, Nazis, and white supremacists. All blacks, all transgenders would be banned and have curfews and marginalized. And you would only hear Trump propaganda and Trump Nazi fascist propaganda. But look what's going on. Who's been banned off these
platforms?
These platforms? Conservatives who are being demonized. Conservatives who are burning and shooting and looting and beating up people. Radical communists. See the hypocrisy. Who's taking down the statues and allowing them to take down the statues? Conservatives, communists. So when I see Trump supporters and Trump rallies and Trump protests or patriot protests, they're peaceful, They're not disrespectful. They show their faces, compared to these Antifa and Black Lives Matter terrorists who terrorize people. Okay, you don't allow any dialogue, don't allow any discussion, any debate, and it's pathetic. So yeah, you can clearly see the distinction, the contrast, and the comparison between terrorists and patriots.
Yeah.
May I rest my case?
Yeah, and the reason why they don't allow any kind of debates back and forth is because they have nothing of substance, right? It's one of those,
liberal logic, brother.
Yeah,
liberal
yeah.
logic.
I mean, one of the things that
emotional rhetoric.
Yeah, it's just based off emotions, and there's actually no facts, no substance behind it. But one of the main reasons, like one of the biggest thing that's going to happen to these people on the left, they think that they're helping out, and that once all this communism happens and things like that, the first thing that's going to happen is that they're going to turn on them, and they'll be the first ones to actually be shot. Like you said, they'll be the first ones that are going to be thrown in jail. They think that just because they're helping,
to a slaughter.
Yeah, like they think that just because they're helping, that that they're going to be spared when everything happens. No, they're going to actually be the first ones to be put out there, shot, put in jail, or whatever, just like the rest of us.
Exactly. There's a great documentary, before I forget, a publication. It's free of charge. You can watch it on YouTube, or you can read it at the website I'm about to give you. Sure. It's called The 9 Commentaries on the Communist Party. How the evil specter of communism is ruling the world. It's a phenomenal publication for any avid reader on China, communism, how it has seeped in and poisoned into America. It's detailed, it's logical, it's rational, and it's got incredible, mind-blowing truths and facts about it. It's called The 9 Commentaries on the Communist Party. It's written by the Epoch Times out of New York City, who's done a phenomenal job. They are the biggest funders to Trump. Trump loves them, and I love them too. They're a phenomenal newspaper out of New York, a very conservative, well reported newspaper, well factual, documented, credible newspaper, you can read this. You can read the publication for free at www.commentaries.com, 9commentaries.com, or you can just look up on Google how the evil specter of communism is ruling the world, by the Epoch Times, EPOCHTIMES, Epoch Times. Great documentary and publication.
Yeah, I mean, so one of getting back to our topic here, I had a quick question. Is I don't understand. So people that go into China for organs, don't they have to declare, why they're actually there? I mean, how easy is it for people to come from other countries there, to actually receive organs?
Well, that's the thing. Our investigators, we pretended to be buyers. Chinese buyers from international patients wanting organs, livers, hearts, pancreases, corneas, and they actually called the doctors at very high-ranking and top medical institutes and hospitals in China. We actually had them on tape, and the patients, they were disguised as patients, basically. The investigators who spoke Chinese they called in and they said, look, Dr. So-and-so, we are specifically looking for Falun Gong organs. We heard that they are the best, they are the freshest, and they are the most healthiest you have. And you would hear the doctors on the other side, sure, yeah, we have good supply, no problem. Just like cattle, just like raw material. This is a kill to order process, Paul. A lot of people can't wrap their minds around it. This is kill to order. This is a specified date. There is no other country in the world, no other government in this world, no other legal system in this world. I don't care what you're talking about, the prison systems, whatever. There is no other legal sanctioned, criminally masterminded plot to destroy 100 million people, okay, at the behest of the Chinese military, at the highest ranking officials of the Communist Party, with the largest military, the second largest economy in the world. I mean, the largest number of people, 1.3 billion people, to destroy an innocent spiritual movement, and because it is so powerful for the health, kill them for their organs. There's no other place in this world, sanctioned and legal. This is a cold genocide, which is basically a subtle integration of the genocide into normality. So normalizing a genocide. A hot genocide is like the Rwandan genocide in 1994. It's a great documentary called The Ghosts of Rwanda on YouTube. It's a really good documentary, one of its kind. Showed a hot genocide where the Hutu extremists just came out with knives and machetes and just butchered 80,000 people a day. There were almost 800,000 people in a week or two. I mean, it was insane, 10 days before the Tutsis shot back. That was a hot genocide. It's just kill, okay? A cold genocide is normalizing. It's even more dangerous because you're normalizing the genocide into the general population, making it okay, subtly through subversiveness, deception, propaganda, and this is what deception. This is what the Communist Party is really good at. This is what they've been teaching the leftist media to do to the American people. This is why you have the Antifa. You have the rise of Black Lives Matter. You have the rise of communist rules for radicals. Okay, I'm sure you've heard about rules for radicals. Yep. This is why communism has been allowed to get into America, because they have used it as a normalization technique, a normalization manipulative tactic to indoctrinate jolted, lost youth. They want to crash the economy. They want to demonize the family. They want to destroy any good traditions. They want to turn public opinion against America, call the American flag evil and genocidal and bloodstained, which is not. It is stained with the blood of patriots dying to give these radical leftist liberal idiots freedoms that they are now taking for granted and are so unappreciative of having. And it's disgusting. And that's why I say to you that these people are lost. They're tortured souls. These Antifa, these radical Black Lives Matter, even these university students and these hippies that I see around the world. I mean, I don't know, I've got nothing against hippies, you know what I mean? But for God's sake, I mean, wake up. This woke culture, this cancel culture, right. God forbid you say something different compared to what they say. You are now banned from chat rooms and then re-educated. And if you're not re-educated, you're banned. They're going to ban Eskimo powers. Oh, and by the way, I heard another in New York, he's a beauty, as our great white hope would say, as the Donald would say, he's a beauty. This New York Times reporter saying that the traffic lights, because you see a white man, a white figure of a man walking, it's racist. It's instinctively racist. And I can tell you that there is no systemic or systematic racist policy in the United States that is suppressing Black people, white people, Korean people, Pakistani people, Indian people, in this time now. And what I can't stand about the radical left is that they virtual signal, they're a bunch of hypocrites, and they victimhood project the past sufferings on people who have nothing to do with it, and are forcing them, especially with the transgenderism. I mean, not even get started with this stuff, but I mean, poisoning the minds of children to believe that there are more than two genders, the traditional values, taking it out. And this is, and I want to say it as well, transgenderism, nothing to do with transgender people, but transgenderism, transhumanism, the cloning, all this nonsense, this GMOs, these chemtrails, I mean, weaponized propaganda, deceptive media, all this stuff is from the Communist Party. It's from the demon specter of the Chinese Communist Party, who are killing in large scale millions of hundreds of thousands of Falun Gong practitioners and Uyghur Muslims and house Christians and Tibetans, millions of their own people. I mean, I just want to let you know that there was a report going on that 20 million cell phone users went dark during the
China, yeah.
in China. Now, how do 20 million cell phone users who need cell phones, who are basically mandated by the Chinese Communist Party, because if you don't have your cell phone, you're not tapped. Do they need that to be tapped, especially with the social credit score agenda, okay, that wants to be exported into America to a theater near you by our great Google and our great Facebook and our great, what's his name? He's a beauty too, the Twitter guy, Jack Dorsey. Oh, what a
Jack
beauty
Dorsey.
he is.
Yeah.
Yeah, gotta love him. Bunch of commies, man, sleeping with the Communist Party, sleeping with the Red Dragon, sold out America to the Red Dragon.
Right.
So you see a large amount of this indoctrination, communist manifesto, radical leftism, liberalism, all disguised as communism, but it's not going to get further. It seems like it's getting further, but it's not going to. It's going to be stopped in its track very shortly, especially when the Chinese Communist Party, this red reign of terror, collapses, and George Soros is brought to justice, and Rockefeller. I mean, Rockefeller already died. He had 7 heart transplants. He's dead. Henry Kissinger, dead. Going to be dead. Is dying soon. I'm not sure if you know Peter Navarro or Steve Bannon.
Right.
He runs the War Room talk show. Brilliant. There is actually a democratic Chinese republic, a new Chinese democracy that's coming in. Guns N' Roses was actually did a song on Chinese democracy. You know, it don't really matter. You know, blame it on the Falun Gong. And that song was actually banned from communist China. But God bless Axl Rose, man. I mean, he went off his rocker a couple of times. But man, he came out with that song. I was like, man, way to go, man. You are such a rock star by doing that. And he was banned from China. He couldn't go. He couldn't tour in China. Can you believe it?
Oh my God, because of the song, yeah. No, I mean, it's like you mentioned, when they're, phones being tapped. I mean, you see that starting here with this whole COVID-19 thing. They wanted to push out some kind of update, which they actually did push out for like iPhone users and things like that, where they wanted to monitor you to see, if you actually come into contact with anybody that had the virus. I mean, you have Bill Gates's ID 2020 program where, they actually want to monitor everybody, So I mean, that's pretty much where it's not widespread, right? But that's kind of the idea that they want to go after with that whole program. So
yeah, absolutely. The very what's disgraceful and sad is the very people who so-called swore to protect humanity and were put in position to protect humanity are the actual ones that are destroying it purposefully, intentfully, criminally, complicitly. But they will all be judged and they will all be brought to justice, because they will not get away with it. Evil will never triumph over good. Bottom line, never will, never has, and there will be justice and there will be retribution. I shit you not, very soon. But again, it's been such a pleasure, Paul. Maybe before I go, since it's getting late here, if I can give out a couple of websites, people can take a look, maybe sign a petition.
Yeah, absolutely.
Get more information.
I know you mentioned that you were actually kicked off of Facebook the other day.
Terminated. Yeah. Terminated from Facebook. Yeah. The Chicoms and in cahoots with Facebook, because I go on there and I give them hell.
Yeah, no, yeah, absolutely. No, but yeah, definitely let everybody know where they can find you, many kind of websites where they can sign petitions and things like that.
Absolutely. Well, you can find me on Twitter, TruthSeeker007, 007, TruthSeeker007. Crazy how I got that name. I'm sure you could never get that name. That was in the early years, but TruthSeeker007.
Okay.
Yeah. And then, that's on Twitter.
And we see that you have that stoporganharvesting.org. Is that also where they can find you at?
Yes, stoporganharvesting.org. And then faluninfo.net. 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 Great website. Discusses what Falun Gong is, how you can learn about it, the persecution of it, and the forced organ harvesting. There's also another website. I gave you one, www.9commentaries.com, where you can get the 9 commentaries and look up the Epoch Times as well. It's a great publication, one of the best in the world today, out of New York. You can also take a look at China Uncensored with Chris Chappell. It's a great YouTube channel on YouTube, China Uncensored. And I will also give you, those who really want to read the reports and the statistical reports of what is going on against Falun Gong and the actual reports, the updates in the books, endtransplantabuse.org. Endtransplantabuse.org. This is where you will find all the reports, all the videos, testimonials, evidence after evidence after evidence after evidence after evidence, which the Chinese Communist Party and their demons, their minions, are trying to refute and claim it doesn't exist. I mean, whatever. I mean, Jesus, get a grip, get a life. I mean, these people are pathetic. I mean, anyway, and there's one more website I can share with you. It's a band of doctors that came together called Doctors Against Forced Organ Harvesting. They actually initiated the largest petition of signatures, 3 to 5 million signatures, to the United Nations to urge the United Nations to stop China's Communist Party from forced organ harvesting. And they ignored it. The United Nations just ignored it. We reached the 3 to 5 million mark, but they ignored it. They remained silent. So Doctors Against Forced Organ Harvesting retracted and pulled off the signature, just to show that the complicit silence of the United Nations, which is owned by the Chinese Communist Party, by the way, and the World Health, the Communist Health Organization, headed by Tedros, who was part of the revolutionary Marxist party in Addis Ababa, and covered up 3 cholera outbreaks, and has funded the communist regime's initiatives in taking over the resources, enslaving the people, and funding evil dictatorships like the Janjaweed regime, where the Darfur Genocide, I'm sure you've heard about the Darfur Genocide many years ago.
Yep.
The Janjaweed regime owns 8% of the petroleum oil in Darfur and caused a big genocide there. You've got the Niger Delta, you've got, don't even get me started. I mean, you even got the Vietnamese Communist Party, you've got Thailand, you've got Hong Kong, all in the pockets. Cambodia, all in the pockets of the Chinese communists. Kenya, South Africa now. Because of the money, the amount of money that has been given. Talking about one more thing, Bill Clinton, the rapist, Bill Clinton, and his demon pedophile wretch, Hillary Clinton, okay, a 12-year-old child pedophile. They sold the NAFTA agreements down to Chinese Communist Party in the early 1990s. That's when they sold America a bill of goods. I don't know if you saw the speech, where the American manufacturer that was built up by the GIs, by the veterans, by the World War II saviors and heroes of the Great War, came home, black and white, Hispanic and all, made this country for who it is and for what it is. So we, as American youngsters, could benefit off the fruits of the labor, the sweat and sacrifice of our veterans, whether they were black, whether they were blue, whether they were Oompa Loompa, whether they were bloody goddamn orc. I don't care who you are, okay? But this is what makes it so disgusting and shameful to me, that these radical leftists are so unappreciative that they'll fight against their own freedoms and have no understanding of where their freedoms come from, that they're spitting on the graves of their fathers, their grandfathers, their grandmothers, the founding fathers, and they got the gall, they got the nerve to call George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, evil people. These were founding fathers. Yes, they had slaves. Okay, yes, there was a time to own, but many black people owned slaves at that time as well. And how do you know that they weren't servants? I mean, in South Africa, we had maids and servants that were living on property. Okay, it doesn't make me an evil person.
Mm-hmm.
And George Washington was a founding father. To take down things like that, I mean, it's ridiculous. But they'll keep up Che Guevara, and they'll keep up Mao, and they'll salute the communist flag. Oh, they'll love
Castro
that.
And
Fidel Castro, yeah, and Chavez, and people.
Kaepernick.
Yeah, of course. Robert Mugabe, who starves his people. I mean, but this is the hypocrisy. So, going back to Bill Clinton for just a second, he sold the NAFTA agreements, created the NAFTA agreements, sold the entire manufacturing base to communist China, and introduced and installed a communist slave labor a consumer slave labor market in America with Walmart, with Kmart and IKEA and all these slave labor centers bankrupted the Americans, okay, with credit, all right, disguised as debt. And the average American now that doesn't even know how to plant, doesn't know how to fish, doesn't know how to hunt, hasn't got savings, is so pumped up in debt. So what they're going to do? What are they going to do when the next surge of coronavirus of CCP virus comes? Because it is coming. I shit you not.
Yep.
We're having already China's closing up. We're about to go into lockdown again. It's coming. Prepare.
Well,
this is the end of days, folks.
They've actually have the what they ought to be the bubonic plague also that's actually starting out there again.
Yes, pneumonia, exactly. Yeah.
It's crazy.
Oh yeah. So I mean, there's some big things. We're looking at around September, November, big surges of resurging of
for the elections. Just in time for the elections.
Resurging of the virus, and this is going to kill more. I mean, I don't want to say, but anyway, it's crazy. In China, like I said, the 20 million cell phone units that went down, I mean, millions have died from this virus. They were burning bodies. I'm in Vietnam, Paul. I'm not here to mess around. I'm not here to pull your strings. I don't care if people believe me or not. They don't live the. If you walk in a man's shoes, who's done the work that we've done and the people I've met, including yourself, you know, I'm sure your listeners are well educated. They're intellectual. They can discern what is right and what is wrong. They have been burning bodies in 50 crematories. You should have seen the piled up cell phones. It looked like Auschwitz. It looked like Nazi Germany. I couldn't believe it. But it's true. Millions have died in China from this virus, and millions more are going to die around the world. So Bill Gates patented this virus and did a simulation 3 months before it with 65 to 70 million people dying from this virus. They want to depopulate. This is a plan to depopulate and unleash this on the world. But I hope it doesn't get further. But anyway, it's been a pleasure, Paul. It really has.
Mr. Gerber.
I'm so grateful.
Yeah, I appreciate your time. I know it's late out there, so we'll let you go, but hopefully we can have you on again next time and we can kind of discuss a little more about this topic and other topics as well. We can talk about the left and socialism and all that, you know, all their crap. But yeah, I really appreciate your time. We'll go ahead and link all the websites and your social media and everything down below in the video. So that way everybody can go ahead and reach out to you and they can go ahead and find all your amazing work, and you know, we can go from there. But I'll go ahead and reach back out to you again. Maybe we can set up another time for you to come back. But I really do appreciate your time, sir. And for everybody else that's out there, please look into all this information, because nobody's actually reporting on it. You don't see this on the news anywhere. I mean, unless you do some kind of a deep dive on YouTube or on the internet, I mean, you would have absolutely no idea that's actually going on. But everybody, I appreciate your time. For those of you that want to find us online, you can actually find us on Spotify, Google Podcasts, and Apple Podcasts. You can find us on Twitter at Defender Podcast, Instagram at Truth Defender Podcast. And like I mentioned before, if you guys have any questions for myself or our guests, or you have any kind of guest or topic recommendations, you can email us at thetruthDefender1776@gmail.com. And everybody, I appreciate you guys coming out this week and listening to our podcast. You can watch the video on YouTube, like I mentioned, Truth Defender Podcast on YouTube. And I appreciate you guys coming out. Everybody take care, y'all. We'll see you in the next one.